Hey guys, welcome to episode 5 of the Kurious Kast. My name is Charles Coetzee. I'm your host and co-owner of Kurious Group. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Barbie from Bstyles.lashed, and she's here today to tell us a little bit about her story and how she's gone in her business journey through multiple different things. And welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you. Well, thanks for being here. You've got a really interesting story that I think we should definitely share with the world.
Yep.
And just start with telling us a little bit about yourself and kind of how your journey started.
So I've been in the lash industry. I did my lash course in August 2018. Before lashing, I worked in construction for 4 years. For 2 years, I was a hoist operator, and then for 2 years, I was a site supervisor in joinery. The reason I got into lashing is I had a girlfriend that lashed, and I knew how much money she was making, and it was like double, if not triple, what I was making on a job site. So when the opportunity come up that I could change roles, I literally Googled lash courses driving home, found one, and 2 days later did it, and that was it. Went forward from there.
And just took that affirmative action and just went with it.
Yeah.
If we go back a couple of steps,
Yeah.
we talk about how you got started in construction, because I think that's probably something that would interest myself and also a lot of our viewers.
Yeah.
Would be that, it's a very male-dominated industry, and you're also in a position of authority in that industry where you are a site manager.
Yeah.
You're not just another person on a job site. You've got a very pivotal role. So how did that all eventuate? How did that begin?
So construction started, and that came from, I worked in hospitality behind bars and like RSL type clubs,
Yep.
the pubs, and I was a gaming manager. So I had my game managing experience from that, and then I'd made some girlfriends along the way, and one of them started working in construction and had worked in there for a year or so. She was killing it, worked on a big job in the city, and I was like, what do I have to do? Like, how do I do that? She's like, I have to get this white card ticket, and if you get a hoist ticket and your traffic ticket, you'll be more likely to go into a job site because you can do more than one thing. I was like, all right, sweet. So I signed up, did the courses. My first ever construction technically was a traffic job, but it wasn't a typical traffic job. It was literally the easiest thing in the world, and I just got to sit in my car at a yard from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I just had to sit there and make sure that no one broke in, pretty much. Like, once in the 12 hours, a truck would leave or come back, and I'd open the gate for it and close it, and then that was it. And it was like amazing money, because it was overnight. And I just sat in my car the whole time, like playing on my phone or doing anything. That was it. And then from there, that I worked for a labour hire company, and he'd said, oh, there's a site coming up for hoist work. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Where is it? And then I was on a job in Walleye Creek for a builder called Pro Build. And then that's where I first properly was on a job site. And I was there, went for a few other jobs, obviously, with that same labour hire company. And then got offered a job on a Meriton site, which would be full-time, which was a pay cut, but it was full-time. So like,
and what was that doing on the site?
Hoist as well.
Yeah.
So I was a hoist operator still. Then I was with Meriton for a little while, and I wanted to leave I didn't want to leave. I wanted to work with the builder and do a cadetship to become a project manager. And then my mum works for a joinery company, and her boss heard that I wanted to do a cadetship, wanted me to come to them, do it through them so that I could manage for them at the same time. I never did the uni side. I just went straight into the role. They worked it out.
Well, I think sometimes on-the-job experience is a lot more valuable than what you're going to learn in a classroom.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's probably things that you would have learnt on that site that you would only have learnt through experience.
100%.
And then how did that eventuate to that next step of where you went from there? So I'm guessing, are you still working for that same company now? Or
No. So the first company I worked for, and it happens a lot in construction, which I'm sure most people know, the companies went under. So one was called Prestige that went under. There was another one called Top Knot Woodworks that went under. Those were the two I worked for most in that 2 years. And then before Top Knot went under, the job I was on finished and I had a 3-month gap, and I could either go into the office and work for 3 months, or I could have a holiday unpaid for 3 months and come back. They literally, after the first month, still were convinced I was coming back.
Mm-hmm.
In that first month, I'd already started lashing, and I was like, I'm not coming back. Find someone else because I'm not coming back. And yeah, like I said, when I'd got the call to say, all right, this job's over now, do you want to come to the office? We can start on Monday. I've never worked in an office. I can barely use a computer. So I was never going to do that. And yeah, like I said, Googled the course, found it, did it. I'd called a girlfriend in the meantime, and she worked in retail. It's like, hey, can you give me a few shifts? I'm going to start lashing and just to have a bit of security. She said, yeah, I'll speak to my area manager. Literally the next week, I sent my resume, saw the area manager, spoke to her for like not even 5 minutes. And she was like, look, I've never done this before. Just when can you start? It's fine. Like I can tell you can do it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, tomorrow, whatever. And so then that was like August. By December, I was so busy lashing. I said to them, I can maybe give you like 1 day a fortnight. And I was lashing almost 6 days a week, 6 clients a day, like nonstop. And it was just I was lucky. Like I just.
Also, luck does, come into it a little bit, but also looking at your online presence and your social media, I'm sure that came into it a lot.
So while I was still in construction, I actually did a social media workshop.
Yep.
Before I'd even considered leaving. Just because I wanted to learn. Like I like learning new things. So I went and did this from a social media agency. They'd had a little workshop thing. I went and did that. And my girlfriend, who was the lash tech at the time, I'd like come back to her and I was like, oh, like I learned this and you should try this. And when you blah, 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 call to action that, whatever.
Yep.
All this stuff. And she just didn't really care. She was just like, I'm busy anyway. Like I don't need to post. So I don't really care. And it was true. She didn't. She had the clients. She made the money. That was it. And so then for me, when I started the lash business, I still had that information so that then I could start using that for myself, which helped, I think, a lot. And like the power of collaborating with people. And I was lucky enough that I had friends that were in like cosmetic injectable businesses that would promote to me or let me use a room in their salon. I think I was there like twice a week to start with. And then like that gained clientele for me. And like word of mouth, I feel was the strongest point. But then this branding followed because on social media, my like handle was always Barbie Styles. And that was then my nickname because Barbie is what everyone knows me as. And then one girlfriend used to call me Bstyles. And it was just her that used to call me that. And so then when I was trying to think of names for the lash business, I didn't want to have Barbie because it was so typical. Like, obviously.
Well, that and you might get sued.
Yeah, and it's trademarked.
Yep.
And then I was like, what else can I have that's like me, that's not too, I don't know, cringy? And then I was like, I'll do Bstyles. And then I didn't like the whole lashes, ES. So I did lashed. Like, I don't know, thought of it, asked my friends, like, what do you think of this? They're like, yeah, it's all right. So my logo was the Barbie silhouette. So like the Barbie head silhouette. And it had like an extended lashes on it, which was subtle. I don't know if anyone else could tell, but I knew it was there because I got it edited that way. And then that just followed in the whole, okay, so Barbie, Bstyles, the Barbie logo, obviously it was going to be pink. Like, it was never going to be blue. And then I just rolled with it. So any of the information I'd learned, I put into play. I focused on like particular colors for branding and follow through my page with the same font as what I had in my logo. Like just tried to.
Was this all things that you like learnt through that course, or was it things that you just kind of did as second nature? Because a lot of this is stuff that as a marketer, you always want to tell people, like, make sure that the way that your brand looks everywhere is really cohesive.
Yeah.
But it goes over most people's heads. So where did you learn all this?
The workshop was helpful, but then also just pages on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
just market research.
Yeah, just looking at like social media, like marketers on Instagram and like their do's and don'ts and that type of thing, and being like, you know what, it makes sense. Like, if someone's got, I don't know, some one particular font on their logo and then the rest of their page is like 10 different fonts, nothing's easy to read then, nothing flows, nothing looks good. Or their logo is green and then the rest of their page is blue. Like, how? Why would you do that?
It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's also, people just do things on the run.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of thought into it, but it's good you've had that foresight to put that thought in, that thought into it and then put those things into play because, looking at your social media, it looks great. And doing a little bit of stalking and trying to do a bit of research to see, find out a bit more about yourself. The other thing that I noticed as well was, as well as having the lash business, you also have the other side where you supply other businesses.
Yeah.
And even there, I could see that the marketing was all very cohesive and the branding was all on point, and it flowed all the way through. So you could, even if you'd found one page and then another separately, you could tell that they were related.
Yeah, they were related.
Yeah.
So after the first course I did before lashing, I then did another workshop with another agency during lash time. And I remember sitting there, and it was back when everyone used to like checkerboard their grid.
Mm-hmm.
And like one of the second sentences they said was, oh yeah, and while you're doing, so this example, checkerboard grid, it's not in anymore. Like, don't do it. And I grabbed my phone and I was like, oh guys, delete. Be like, what? How did I miss it? Like, how did I miss that this isn't in anymore? And I was so obsessed with making sure that everything was perfect on my page. And then I did another, there was this it was only last year, the year before maybe, this really big lash brand from Canada called Lash Evo, and her name is Blaze, and she's super successful, and she's like 21. And she was in Australia for a conference, and she was offering like lash training, and I'd contact her and I was like, hey, like, I don't need you to tell me how to lash. I just want to pick your brain about the business side of things, like the marketing you do and all of that. And she was like, yeah, sure. So, and then I sat with her, and she'd like had this encyclopedia almost of how she markets and why she does it that way, and like branding's important and all that type of thing. And so that, the courses, Instagram, like I said, market research on there, with all of that, that's where I'm like, okay, cool. So this is what we should be doing, or this is what I should be doing. And then starting the supplies business was because I was spending so much money on stock. It's like buying my own stock was costing so much.
And it all comes out of your bottom line.
Yeah. So then I was like, well, then I started like training people as well. So then if I was training someone and they would have to have lash supplies to work, and then I'm sending them to another supplier.
Doesn't make sense.
So I'm like missing the boat there. So then I was like, okay, so maybe I'm spending so much on myself. My students are going to need supplies. This could work. And again, honestly, it was very lucky that I had a lash friend who I was buying so much from her. She was like, look, I'm just going to give you the supplier. And I was like, really?
It's really important to have those relationships.
Yeah, she was like, yeah, this is who it is. This is how, what you do. So yeah, she was my lash tech also. And because I was buying so much from her, she gave me her supplier details. And then it just snowballed from there, really. I ordered the supplies. I started putting branding on it. There were a few hiccups along the way with supplying, because at the time I was obviously new to the industry, but I'd had a couple of lash friends, and one of them was a supplier, and by chance this supplier happened to be the same supplier as one of my lash friends, and she wasn't too happy about the fact that I now was going to be selling the same product, which meant obviously I wasn't going to be buying from her. So that was a bit of a uncomfortable situation in the lash world. But I just kept selling. Like, it wasn't going to change. Her client, for me, I believe if your client's your client, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Your student's your student, your customer's your customer.
Yeah.
They're coming to you because of you, not because of something else. I
always talk about this. It's a bit like a broken record of like there being an abundance, not a scarcity. Like everyone, especially business owners, they always have this scarcity mindset. Like, oh, I've got to capture all the work that I can and not worry about anyone else. And, it's only about me, 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 me. But it's like, well, if you're doing good and you're over there, we're not crossing paths. Why would I have a problem with that?
Yeah.
Like, we should be supporting each other.
A similar thing had happened when I did my lash course. When I'd Googled and found one and signed up, I'd said to my friend who was my lash tech, who inspired me to want to do it, hey, is it cool with you if I do lashes? And she was kind of a little bit standoffish, and she was like, oh, why? And I was like, oh, I found a course that I signed up, but I want to check with you. I don't want to step on your toes.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, she lived 40 minutes away. And she was like, yeah, I don't care. That's fine. Do it. I'm like, okay, cool. And then within 3 months of lashing, stopped talking to me. Like, just cold turkey.
Yeah, people just, it sounds like you moved very fast through this whole process.
Yeah.
And you're obviously a very driven person to have the foresight to say, okay, I don't want to just do people's lashes. I want to do the supply. I want to do the training. And it all happened on a very short timeline.
Yeah, it did.
And people can't just be happy for other people's success. And you see it all the time, no matter the industry, no matter the situation. Like, you guys are 40 minutes away. Within that 40-minute drive, there's probably another 5 people that do the same thing that you do.
And she was booked out all the time anyway. So, I wasn't going to
take her business.
No, at all. And to me, she's much more skilled than I was. She'd been doing it for longer. I just started out. But yeah, so that's there's been a few shit things along the business that has taught me a lot. When I got too busy and I couldn't fit any new clients in, I then subcontract 3 other lash artists. So I'd find the client, they'd pay the price I had, which was higher than most of the other girls, and then the other girl would lash them and I'd take 20% or something like that. And then again with that, one of the particular girls started lashing clients and not telling me, and then or charging extra but not telling me, or not telling the client why. And then obviously the clients were loyal to me because I was their lash tech originally.
Yep.
One girl messaged saying, oh, had to pay an extra $10 last time. Were my lashes bad? And I was like, oh, I'm not sure. I'll ask. Or I'd go back to the messages to check what she'd done in the day, and she wouldn't have added it in. And then I'd be like, oh, hey, did you charge extra? Oh, I forgot to tell you about it. Or one girl was due for her infill and I'd reached out to her and I was like, hey, you're due for your 2-week infill. Did you want me to book you in? She's like, oh, it's okay. Such and such done it at her house last week. I'm like, oh, okay. Did she? Let's finish these.
It's, finding loyal people is not always the easiest thing, but it's all just part of business and learning what characters to trust.
That's right. Definitely. And I think for me, because I'm so trusting, I'll talk to a tree, okay, you want to be friends? All right, cool. I'll be anyone's friend. I'll be nice to anyone, trust anyone. And then these things have happened, and now I think that's made me a little bit more closed off. So I started obviously training, but then I offered mentoring. So if someone had already done a course, they could come to me and I could teach them a little bit more, or in my way. But then it got to a point where people were being in my DMs, how do I do this? Well, why do you do it that way? And then I was like, you have to pay me.
Yeah. Well,
I was giving a lot of free education online already, but I'm not going to sit there and tell you step to step how to make your job better when I had to pay to learn it.
Yeah, well, it's also now your knowledge through experience and your learning. If someone wants to learn that, then you've got a means for them to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
And then how did you pivot back to construction from there?
So this year in February, lashing got quiet. Real brief. So lashed 2018, 2019, 2020. Obviously there was COVID. It was a funny time. During COVID, I don't know, it's just weird. People learnt to live without lashes, which I'm sure as a guy, you're who cares?
Yeah.
It's lashes. But the clients that I had were I don't care if you charge $500 for an infill, I'm coming. They were dedicated. And then through each lockdown, we had to learn to live without these things that made us feel good or look better, or as my husband says, you look alive when I have them. And then...
Well, it's for guys, it's getting a haircut, I guess, yeah.
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 Yeah, he goes every week.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So dramatic. And so learning to live without them, I think once we come out of the lockdowns, people were like, oh, maybe I don't need to get them. Just live this long without them. Or they were getting them only for special occasions. So after each lockdown, business decreased by about 25%. Also, I had girls that like moved overseas. They've left the state. They got married. They had babies. Like there's so many other things as well. And then fast forward to like now-ish, the last year, I was planning my wedding, which felt like it took every last brain cell that I had. And then inflation. And then, so like by the end of last year, I was running at about 25% of my initial clientele, which was a decent loss. And then I didn't even have like the capacity to do training because when I was training, I wasn't half-assing it. Like I was hiring venues and I was doing massive like group trainings and organizing like supplies for food and like making sure I had beauty beds for everyone and like organizing the kits, and it was just a lot. So when I'd come to the point that I was like, okay, well, I've got to do something. Something's got to change now. Again, it was just luck that I got a phone call from the company that my mum was working for saying, do you think you can come back to site just for 2 weeks? The job site's really struggling and we need help. And I was like, I haven't been on a job site in 6 years. I don't know what to do anymore. So don't be stupid. Of course you know what to do. Just come on, can you come for 2 weeks? And I was like, well, how much are you going to pay me? She said a good amount. I was like, okay, fine. So I literally contacted 2 weeks worth of clients and said, hey, just for this 2 weeks, like could we do at this point in lashing, I was only lashing 4 days a week and I wasn't working weekends. So then I usually didn't work after 5. I was like, hey, really weird, but do you think we can lash after 5 or on Saturday? And so everyone is very flexible and was like, yeah, it's fine, and I was like, it's just 2 weeks. After these 2 weeks, I'm back. Don't worry, blah, blah, blah. Then in the second week of being back on site, at the time it was my mum's boss, called me into the office and was like, can you stay longer? And I was like, I've got a business. Like, what do you mean? And he's like, that's okay. Can't you just make it work? I was like, I'll try. So then I went back and like looked at the clients, thought about their availability, and then come into the office and said, okay, I need to have every second Wednesday off and I'll lash all day that day. And then I'll lash in the afternoons to the other clients because like certain like mum clients want to come during the day while the kids are at school and things like that. And so then then I made work until probably a month ago now. And then I'd said to the mum client, who is a friend of mine anyway, I was like, hey, look, can you come in the afternoon? Because I have to go to work, I have to be on site. So now every second Wednesday, which was today, I have one client in the morning at home and then I go to site. And then I'll come home from site a little bit later than I do on the other days, and then I'll do one client tonight, technically. And then Monday afternoon, I'll do 2 clients. Tuesday afternoon, 2 clients. Thursdays, 2 clients. I try not to work on Friday, so I've got a little bit of...
Is it easy to juggle the 2 roles? Like they're very different roles.
They're very different roles.
Very different headspaces.
If anything, I feel like stepping out of lashing full-time has made me like it a little bit more. Like, to the end of it, it's definitely not that I hated it. I love my clients and I love catching up with them, and I, seeing some of them come every week and they don't need to.
It's more the social aspect.
Yeah. Like,
relationships.
That's right. Like, so I could never not do it just for that aspect of it. And some of the friends that I have now, most of the friends I have now are friends because they are my clients. Like 6 years of lashing someone, you go through a lot together. And you see each other every 2 weeks. You're with each other for at least an hour and a half every 2 weeks. Like that's more than I would see my friends outside of lashing. It's more than I'd see anyone else. So changing the appointments for them, like I said, because we can become pretty much all friends now, they were more understanding of it. But being on a job site and saying, oh, I can't stay back today, I've got a client. And the guys are like, what? What are you, a client for what? I'm like, oh, I do lashes. What?
Yeah, that kind of leads to my next thing of like, what is it like being on those job sites and being probably the only female on those job sites, and definitely probably the only female project manager on those job sites.
So there are a few girls.
Yeah.
Not many. Just recently, I got one of my girlfriends again, who I met through lashing. Me and my husband joked that she's our daughter because when I met her lashing, she was like my third client, I reckon, and she was fresh 18. So I've seen her like grow up. And I called her and I said, hey, what days do you work? She works behind a bar at the moment and she's off uni currently. And I don't know what it is with kids these days, but they're just broke all the time. So I'd said, yeah. I was like, if you didn't go to gigs every other weekend, you'd have more money. Anyway, so I'd called her. I was like, hey, what days do you work in the pub? She told me. I was like, all right, I've got a job for you. She was like, wait, what? What do I do? I'm like, go and buy steel cabs, get a high vis, do your white card online, start on Monday. So, okay, all right. And so she does like my admin stuff on site. She walks around with an iPad and like closes out defects and things like that. She's learning. But it's just funny seeing, for me, going on the job site, it's like I love it. I love it. I love being up early. I love being left. It's out, not always outdoors, but the environment I love. My husband was a little bit weird about it because we met on a job site. But I'm like, we're married now. I was single. You were single. But I always say to everyone, men on job sites are more scared of us than we are of them. Because technically, if a guy ever looks at me the wrong way, I can be like, yeah, he was being inappropriate.
Yeah, well, it's also just the odd side of seeing more than, and even now, when your site's more than one female on site, it's like it's just an industry that just has always been dominated by males.
When you like walking into the job site, they're like it's just beyond me. It's funny though.
It's a bit of a shock to the system.
Yeah, it is. And look, now obviously, like when I first started going to the job site, everyone was like, some of them thought I was the client for the builder. So like I was not working there. Or I think once they thought I was a cleaner or a traffic girl, like just other things that aren't authority figures.
Yeah.
And then, they're, oh, what are you doing here, darling? I'm like, I'm the site manager for the joinery. And like, oh, what? It confuses a lot of people. And when I'd started lashing from it, it confused a lot of clients being like, what? You worked in construction. And a lot of the times when I was training people, it was kind of helpful because I'd say, I worked in construction and I'm here. Like I didn't come from a beauty background. I didn't have your like typical female job and then come here. I come from like the opposite end of the world and then come into beauty.
Well, you don't really know where your journey's going to take you, do you? Like, I didn't start my career in marketing, and I definitely didn't think that I'd be sitting here talking to you
about lashes.
Yeah, like just on a podcast. Like, where you just don't know where things are going to take you, and you kind of just got to be along the ride for the journey.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But is there anything that you would want to tell the audience as far as like, you've got a very interesting journey, and there's been like a lot of back and forth between industries and like a lot of juggling, I guess, even at the same time of being in two very different roles. Is there something that you'd want to maybe tell the audience as like a bit of a takeaway if they don't really know where they're at or what they're doing and maybe trying to find their feet?
I think that, and I would say this to girls when I was training them, when you have no other option but to make it work, that's when it works. So a lot of the time I'd train girls and they'd be like, oh, I've got a full-time job though, so like I'm just going to do it on the side. And I'm like, yeah, but while you'll always know that you've got that security of it, you're never going to make the effort to make this work. When I had the retail job, it was a casual job and retail pays like nothing. And I had a mortgage, so I had to make something work. And even being in the retail job, within the first month of being there, they were like, can you be the assistant manager? And I was like, absolutely not. And don't get me wrong, one of my best friends now was the manager of that store, and she like pinned me in the back room and was like, what do we have to do to get you to do it? You need to be my 2IC. And I was like, you can't pay me enough money. And she's like, I'll talk to the boss. I'll talk to them. And I was like, they still won't do it. Like, I know. And so it was knowing that, even if I stayed in retail and didn't do lashes, they weren't going to pay me enough to pay my mortgage.
Mhm.
And I had to pay my mortgage because I've got to live there. So I had to make lashing work. Like there was no other option. So people that are learning new skills or like looking at exploring avenues, you have to make sure that you're putting all your focus into that. And that can be hard, obviously, when people, if they have kids or if there's other commitments that they have to do. But
it can be very daunting to say, I'm going to just go all in on this without really knowing if it's going to work. Like you might, with all the foresight and planning you can do, you're never going to really know if something is going to work until you do it.
So my mum thought I was crazy. My partner, it was my husband now, but my partner thought I was crazy. Everyone I knew thought I was crazy for leaving a job that paid obviously well money to do lashes. Like they were like, you don't even know how to do that. Like you've never even done anything like this. And I was like, yeah, I don't care. It's all right. And now my mum and my husband are always like, can't believe it worked. Like,
you had the commitment and the foresight to just get it done.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for sharing your story today. It's been really amazing to hear a very different perspective and see like how you can really go from transition from one thing to another and kind of make both work at the same time. And it's something that most stories don't really have. Everyone kind of just sticks to one narrative and will just see it through, even if it's not what they really want to do or, where their heart really is. Whereas you, it's like, this is what I'm going to do. And you did it. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
No worries.